Hello, movie fans. We're the movie family. We're here to do our review for the new movie 1917. It's now 2020, and we're going to review the movie 1917. It is, if you haven't been to our channel before, we do movie reviews, reactions, and sometimes some movie games. So stick around and see what we have to say about 1917. Hey again. So 1917 is a new movie by Sam Mendes, and it basically is about 24 hours or so in the life of World War One, and it's set in World War One in England, or actually it's not even set in England, right?
Is it in Germany?
I think it's in France. Occupied France.
Oh yeah, no, it is France.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
in
yeah.
France.
So it's set in occupied France, and essentially the storyline is again no spoilers, but the storyline is that two young corporals, I believe they are soldiers for the British troops, are assigned with a very special mission in order to notify another battalion that's about 1,600 men that they should not attack because it's a trap. And the Germans have set a trap for them, and all the lines of communication are cut off. So these two young soldiers have to go and try to stop them from attacking and try to save the lives of these 1,600 men. Basically, they've got about 16 hours or so in order to deliver that message before the other troop attacks. And then, of course, in this story, there is a brother um, that is being assigned. He's one of the young soldiers assigned to go give the message, and his older brother, is one of the soldiers that they're going to go try to save. So that's essentially the main plot of the story. So what's everybody's general thoughts about the movie 1917?
I thought it was technically fantastic. That was probably what Tommy was going to say. You really appreciate I don't know if it's direction or the cinematography. It was good. It was really well done. But I don't know if I thought it was great. Technically great versus my enjoyment of it are not. My appreciation of it versus my enjoyment of it are not necessarily the same.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, I kind of feel the same. I went into this movie expecting to love it. Like I had heard really good things about it, and I like war movies most of the time. But this one just didn't have that same effect. I don't know. I mean, I like the ending of the movie a lot, and it was definitely really tense. And technically, it was amazing. It was scored really well. It was really well acted. Uh, of course, the whole long take thing that they had was amazing, and it helped to sort of keep that tension throughout the whole movie. So even when there was nothing really happening, you still felt a little bit of that tension because it just felt more real.
Yeah, I think that did feel more real. I would agree with both what you said. Is that I think it was a beautiful, technically well done movie, well scored, good acting. It was not as amazing of a movie as I think I had hoped it would be. It just it looked really good, and it was a good quality movie. It just wasn't one that I was walked away from like, wow, what a movie! Like I really want to see that again. It's so great. It just wasn't one of those movies for me. It was like it was good, and I enjoyed a lot of it. And maybe and the acting was good too. I'm just thinking maybe with more like different actors and stuff, I would have had more vested interest in the main characters. I would have been a little bit more interested in kind of like you were talking about the outcomes at the end, which again I think it ended well too. But I don't necessarily know. I thought it was one of those movies that I really cared a lot about. And I've heard it compared to Saving Private Ryan, the British Saving Private Ryan. I think that's a good kind of comparison. It's not as long, thankfully. It's about 2 hours long, and it doesn't have the same real story plot, but it's still the same idea about this is kind of like a one shot or a couple days in the life of a soldier during a war. And Stephen Private Ryan was World War II. This is World War One. And so it does give you kind of the horrors of war, the futility of war, things like that. And I think they do a good job with that. It is the dramatic scenes are well acted. It just, again, it lacks something. It lacks some emotion to me, something like that.
I cried during movies, and this one, I didn't. Like, there were scenes that were emotional, that were well done. I don't have specific complaints. It just didn't really elicit the response that Saving Private Ryan did.
That's what I felt.
It didn't elicit the emotion that I had thought.
Yeah, me too. Like, when certain things happened, I was like, I really should be sadder about this.
Right.
Because it's so well done. And I feel like normally in movies, I would feel like a really good emotional response with that. Or like, I would be really sad. But I just wasn't.
Yeah. Like, I was sad. I just wasn't, like, overly sad. Like, I'm like, this is a sad moment. But I wasn't personally sad.
Yeah. I was sad, but I didn't cry, which surprised me, because I do.
Yeah. And again, some of the moments were like, oh, this is really sad that this is happening. But it was almost from, like, an outsider's view. I didn't feel like I was invested at all in what was kind of happening. Even though this is, again, probably, it's not a true story, but based on, like, a lot of things that happened during those wars that I think, during World War One, I'm sure there was instances of all the things that occurs to him kind of in his journey, or all their journey.
I wasn't emotionally invested in the story. That's what I felt like. It was like, there were times where I was just sitting there thinking, like, this movie's really good, but unfortunately, if it ended right at this second, would I care that much? Do I need to know what happens? Do I need to see the last 20 or 30 minutes of this? No, I don't.
And I think in that way, too, I thought it was a little formulaic. There was definitely some jump surprises and, like, things that like made you jump a little bit that were exciting, but I don't necessarily know that I was like, oh, this is going to be a total surprise, or this definitely went a different way than I thought it would. It was almost always like, okay, I kind of get that where that goes.
Yeah.
It was intense, though.
It was intense.
It's a weird balance of being... It was really intense, or maybe it's an imbalance. I think that's the thing. It was intense, but I didn't have the emotional connection.
Yeah, there was a scene where he was running, like he was sprinting and he was getting shot at. And I just sort of thought, like, it was intense if I gave myself the idea that I was, like, in his shoes, that I was the one running away from that, but it wasn't tense, like...
Yeah.
Like
just as a viewer.
Because I didn't really feel like I cared that much about the character. Like, I felt like I should have been, like, really worried about the character, and, like, is the character going to get shot right here? But I just wasn't. And I felt like the stakes should have felt higher, but they didn't.
It's one of those, like, I feel bad for saying that I didn't feel an emotional connection.
Exactly,
because there's no other complaints that I have about it other than it just it just didn't quite
didn't resonate.
I mean, and, you mentioned the long shot. I mean, you talk about that because I think that's the biggest kind of cool thing that comes out of this movie, like, again, how it's shot.
Yeah, that's the best thing that this movie has to offer, I feel like, is that it's the one shot, or that it looks like it's the one shot. And I feel like if you didn't have the one shot...
explain that for a second.
What do you mean?
What do you mean with the one shot?
So it's edited to look like it's a one shot, basically. So, like, it's shot in one continuous take. There's one cut about, like, halfway through the movie, but that's for story purposes, so it has to do that. But so basically, there are, like, hidden cuts throughout, but they're really difficult to find, which is cool and weird, because that means that there are some sequences that are just, like, 10 minutes long with no cuts, because there's no space for them to have a cut.
Yeah. So it seems like you're on this continuous journey with him, which I think is, again, part of why it seems like a really different movie that way, and it's well done and it's intense all the time, because you are following along with his with their journey, and the the main characters, they go, all their stuff that they're doing, and you're following along behind them, but it's almost like you're, in some senses, I think maybe the emotional disconnect is where sometimes I felt like I wasn't the cameraman following him. It was, there was a couple of moments where I think they did it the first person kind of view, but rarely. I think most of the time they actually had both of the characters in shot. They were doing where you were seeing what they were seeing, but you were watching them do stuff.
Yeah.
So like that third person view, and I think was cool because it was that continuous shot where it looks like they never stopped rolling, which obviously it did, but or at least I would assume that they did at some point. But the way they did it, I think also might have caused it to be less emotional connected because you never got the perspective of the individual in their intensity and their being scared about something. You were always kind of watching it from a third party view.
Yeah.
But again, I thought it was really well done. And some of the shots are beautiful. Again, like Saving Private Ryan, some are just amazingly like vistas and the beauty of the countryside and the intensity of the actual, the horribleness of no man's land and all that kind of stuff. You get to see all of that, and a lot of those shots are really well done and put together, and they look super real, and they like bring you to that place.
I don't know about anything that was beautiful. I don't think they saw many beautiful things.
At the beginning and the end, there was some beautiful stuff, I think, but
I think the end more so.
Yeah.
I thought that it was good as far as showing, like, the horrors of war, what so many people probably went through. Like you said, it was probably not an uncommon story for the soldiers to have these terrible things happen. It was good for the realism, I think.
But you said it also didn't make you feel very good.
Yeah.
Like it's more realistic that way, but it also wasn't like an upbeat movie where you're like, this is super great. Yay, the hero's doing good things. It's like you're rooting for the heroes, but it's like you also are like, oh, it's, it doesn't leave you with like super satisfaction, I think.
Yeah.
Or happiness. Definitely not happiness.
Yeah, because things happen like they would really happen. They're not built up in any like over dramatic way, which I really like.
Yeah,
like when surprising stuff happens, the camera turns away and you're with one character, and then you turn back to the other character and something surprising just happened, and you're like, that just happened. And it feels like this is how it would happen in real life. And when stuff that's like important to the story happens, and it's just sort of over and done, and you're like, I don't really feel satisfied. But that's what the character's feeling too. And I feel like it sort of gets that across really well, but it's not like achieve. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those movies that too, if you like movies like Saving Private Ryan, if you like Dunkirk, things that are like, again, well done cinematic movies that there's really not a lot of dialogue into, because there's probably not much dialogue if you really actually look at the scene by scene. It's more about the character's journey. I think then you would like this movie, and I think it has enough great visuals and a great score and all that kind of stuff to maybe warrant go seeing it in the movie theater if you like kind of historic war movies that are just really well put together. But it can also be very boring, I think, if you do not like that. I think people would be, could walk away from the movie and be like, that was okay. It wasn't exciting. It had exciting moments. It was intense, but it wasn't, there was also a lot of boring stuff in it. In the whole, like you said, the whole story was kind of ordinary in some senses. It's an extraordinary idea, but kind of ordinary in the way that it comes out.
Yeah, I feel like if you take away the whole one-shot camera thing, it just sort of blends in with every other war movie.
If we took away the thing that made us feel like it was technically fantastic.
Exactly. Then that's really the only
it becomes just
big
like another
thing. Yeah, exactly. It just feels like another war movie.
I was definitely interested, but not invested.
Yeah, I mean, and that said, the movie, it won the Golden Globe for Best Drama Picture, and then Sam Mendes won for the Best Director, which he could be nominated for the Academy Award for it, and he could get that kind of, that same kind of awards. I don't know, compared to the other things that are out there right now, having seen this movie, it made me more interested in seeing it. I'm not sure if I really think it warrants that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've seen the other movies that are nominated.
Well, I mean, you got Joker.
I've seen Joker. That's the only one I'm sure of.
I still think Marriage Story should have won that. It was better than than this.
Yeah,
Like,
it's hard to compare. It's apples and oranges.
I guess so,
you
but
know.
the thing is, after he won the Academy Award for this for like best drama, then
Golden Globe.
or Golden whatever, yeah, Golden Globe, whatever it's called, for this for like best drama, I was going into the movie expecting to come out of it thinking that was better than Joker, that was better than Marriage Story, that was better than all these movies, and I didn't.
Right. I don't think it. Yeah, exactly. I think that shows a little bit where the Golden Globes differ.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I actually felt, for me, in a very similar way to Joker. When we came out of there, I thought it was really well done, but I don't know if I liked it. Those were things I said after Joker. And maybe it's just like, the themes overall that are intense, but is not
I see what you're saying.
my thing. For me, it's not a rewatchable movie. It's not something that I care about watching again.
Yeah, I like Joker a lot more than I like this movie. For different reasons, though. They were both intense, but again, I think that the overall story for the Joker just had a lot more interesting aspects and more merit to it in the acting and stuff. But the direction was still really good. And then there were some cameos in this movie that were like the truest cameos of all time, where there's, a few big names, but they are in it for less than like 5 minutes. It's really, again, about these no-name actors that, again, some may look a little familiar from other things you might have seen them in, like I think one's from Game of Thrones. But again, it's not like, I think he intentionally made a story without like a big name actor, or a group of big name actors that you're following along, and that like lends to the whole it's an ordinary day, but also I think probably detracts from this I'm invested in the character, I care about these individuals, going forward. But anything else to say about?
I feel like I'll probably watch this movie one or two more times ever, and that's it. Like I might watch this like another time.
Yeah, I'd probably flick it on like if it's on TV once it comes on TV, and I'm sure eventually it'll make it to TV or streaming.
Yeah, I'll watch it.
I'd turn it on and watch part of it at least.
Yeah.
I feel like it's worth seeing, but I don't know if it's worth a theater trip.
Yeah,
maybe.
Again, if you really like war movies, I think it's worth seeing that. And then as far as the like a parental guidance, parental appropriateness, or children appropriateness, it's a rated R movie. There are definitely swears in it. It's there's quite a few different swearing, but it's within context of the movie. It doesn't seem kind of out of place. And it's also very quick in my mind. It's more about the violence and the intensity. So I think, again, war movies like into Saving Private Ryan, if you are not comfortable with Saving Private Ryan level of realistic, war, then this is not going to be a movie that would be appropriate for your children. I'd say, again, for teenagers, maybe if, again, you feel like they can handle that kind of realistic depiction of war and death and violence, and obviously some of the swearing that comes along with being in a war situation. It was very light because they all speak with a British accent. You couldn't really tell. It's not like it's one of those difficult to hear sometimes. But there was definitely a few, which only again made sense because they were in this middle of this horrific battles. So, anyways, I think that be aware, be wary. Again, if you have children that are younger, that this is probably not appropriate for them. So what would be your overall ratings for 1917?
4.5 out of 5.
Okay. That's more than me. I'd give it a 4, maybe even probably a 4 just to be fair. Because again, I liked the movie, I just didn't love the movie.
Yeah, that's where I'm struggling again. I think 4, it was good, but it wasn't great for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a good movie.
Like, I want to give it 5 stars. I really do. But it's just the whole emotional disconnect thing. I just can't get past that. If I don't resonate with the movie, I can't give it 5 stars.
All right, I think that's fair. So that's our review of 1917. If you plan to see it, please let us know in the comments below. If you have seen it already and you have a different opinion and think it is, better than we thought it is or worse than we thought it was, leave some comments. We're, happy to engage with you. We're glad that you came to stop by to watch the video, and make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos from our family. All right. Come join us next time. Thanks. Bye.